welcome everyone to the Owensboro Board of Commission work session, February 11th. I will call this meeting to order now, and at this time I would like to ask for A+ leadership for an update, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We'll be brief but thorough, we hope.
Hand it off to David then?
yeah, real quick. You recently tasked us with the job to look at downtown housing, to look at, not to do a study. We're not doing a study, but we're looking at, in reality, where are there opportunities for people to live downtown. A healthy downtown is a place where people live, work, and play. And we feel like we got work and play pretty well covered. Live, we have covered to the extent if you have quite a bit of money and you can afford an expensive condo, but we don't have at this point in time a lot of options for what we would call affordable housing. That is housing that's in the range of say $800 to $1,100 a month. So we've been looking at various options. We've been looking at the area that's east of the bridge, kind of the industrial type zone. We've been looking west of the convention center, which that may be more of a task than Abby wants us to take on down there, given some of the problems you've got with that part of town. But so we begin to kind of focus on looking maybe between downtown and toward Brescia. Seems to be a nice option to look at for some housing. But we've also looked at, and David's going to talk particularly today about the possibility for any kind of housing in the Owensboro Museum of Science and History. So that'll kind of be our primary focus today. But understand that this is in the most preliminary stages you could be in. We've drawn no conclusions of any kind. We will draw conclusions ultimately. But at this point in time, we're just exploring and talking to people and looking at options. So my partner, David Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners,
Respect your name and address for the record, please.
David Johnson, 439 Maple Avenue. A couple of things I think it's important to know that we're doing at the same time. We're working on, and hopefully in a month or so, we'll be able to bring to you, and it's an open house event downtown. We're working with the Bluegrass Museum and the Realtors Association to get people downtown, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but it seems like it'll be a pretty cool event we're putting together that gets people downtown, understands living, benefits the Bluegrass Museum, and helps us work on our brand a bit. We are continuing to work and talk to in-town and out-of-town developers and people who have vacant property. We're asking them, our questions are, do you see opportunities in Owensboro and downtown where you could build, develop, and people who have properties? Are there ways we can help? Are there ways we can be a conduit with the city to help you begin developing some of the property you have? We've put together a housing committee that's going to talk about a vision for future planning. We're involving EDC, the Chamber, several people here on your city staff, the Realtors Association, and other groups that are involved. So we're excited that group meets next week. Now, the one group we talked to that we thought there was an opportunity was the Owensboro Area Museum, because it is a big building, 82,000 square feet. And we approached them first because Fred and I have a history. We both have been on their board of directors. And 3 years ago, we did a strategic plan for them that put together, if they were going to be a sustainable organization, some things that their group put together that they needed to do. Well, what we did is working with Sim Davenport, who was a former chair, we approached their executive committee and met with them in early January and asked if they would be amenable to sitting down with their full board and some stakeholders and some people who had served as previous boards and some people who had been previous directors and talk about what options were out there. Our role was going to be as facilitators to find out, if they were amenable to a move, what a museum's going to look like in the next 25 years, what stays, what goes, some of those things. So on January 31st, we had a meeting with board members and other stakeholders and different people that were involved. Meeting didn't go particularly the way we thought it would go. We were going to take them through this facilitation, but it was the meeting more focused on moving or not moving. And so before we got too deep into some of the other things, we left the meeting with the understanding, and we had asked them, you need to tell us directly that they were not interested in moving. That was not something that they wanted to do as a group. How we left them is that we hope that you would be open to any conversations that the city might have with you and any possible partnerships that may arise. And we went and Fred and I this morning toured the building again because it's been a few years since I've been through the entire building. And we think there are some opportunities out there possibly. We're not sure what they are. We're not builders. We're not architects. But the building is big, and after talking to Ms. Olson this morning, I think she is a little more open to future partnerships that may arise. So that's where we are with the things in the housing that we're doing, and that's where we are with the museum project right now. The developers. Oh yeah, we do have some developers. We took a trip to Louisville and kind of laid out downtown Owensboro and where some of our vacant properties are and where some of our buildings are. And we did have an organization that they are interested in the museum building. They think it has opportunities because they take downtown buildings. Their office is actually in an old building downtown that they converted into an office building / restaurant, livability. They have several things in the facility. But if you all have questions, we're more than happy to try to answer them.
Okay, questions? I have a few.
Okay.
This, I guess, is directed to Angela Hamrick, please. I was just curious as to how much money the city taxpayers have invested over the last 10 or 11 years in the museum, including building, repair, and upgrades. And you can go ahead and speak to that if you like.
Certainly, Mayor. I've got data here for the last 11 years. And so the city funds annually to the Science Museum quarterly cash funding, if you will. And we've funded $1,772,000 over the past 11 years. Now, I know one thing that I had been asked to look at is if the building was owned and could be taxable, and if it were assessed at what we consider fair market value, we would have probably had maybe about $100,000 in tax revenues over that same period. Now, as far as facilities costs, of course, you know, the city does own that building, so any major items there, the city has taken care of and paid for. Now, the last item is 2014, where we replaced cast iron boilers, and that was $31,000. But back in 1998 was a significant expenditure for roof replacement of $200,000.
Okay. David, did you happen to ask them why the Ford Center kids left?
No, we did not. But we walked through there. The programming left, and we had asked Ms. Olson this morning, and the exhibits stay. So they still have the Ford Center exhibits, just the programming left. So the kids and all the things. But no, I'm not sure we know why they left or what the circumstances were.
Well, I asked the folks at the Ford Center, and these were the top issues that they had, you know, being in that building. One was the issue of scheduling of the Ford Center space. The times that it was open was inconvenient. If they had the group coming and they were, say, started at 11, you know, sometimes no one opened the door until 11:30. If it was, once they all got upstairs, and it was, you know, and they had what they thought all the kids there, then they locked the doors again, and if somebody's out on the outside, had to have a cell phone, call up there, it had to come down, so it's extremely inconvenient. They felt that the financial requirement they wished to impose in order for us to utilize the space was unreasonable, considering the amount of money Wendell and his family had raised in 1998 to build the Ford Center, in addition to multiple fundraisers throughout the years. At that time, we were also responsible for all expenses related to upgrades and repairs to the Ford Center, exhibit, technology, marketing, etc. Did, however, offer to make an additional annual donation in the amount of $5,000 in return for priority in scheduling and access. Again, the same problem, but they declined that offer. They became very uncomfortable with the management of the funds designated, earmarked for the Ford Center. Because of the discomfort in 2013 prior to Wendell's passing, he asked that they become financially separate and start our own 501c3. Not sure how our absence has affected the museum, other than the fact that they are now responsible for maintaining the window forward gallery, which you said the artifacts are still there, and that they no longer have the traffic created for regularly occupying and programming. That's kind of an overview of it. So I think they found space. They're happy with where they moved. So that's just part of the issue there. Next item is what financials and board minutes they compiled for 1 or 2 months only. So we're not really sure who is on the board at this time, because it's my understanding, not from you all, but that someone came and was actually cussing you all out while you all were trying to help them. And you don't have to say yes or no, but I know that's the truth. So that's very disappointing that it's become that kind of issue there, and I'm not sure even if that person was a board member, because we don't know.
No, they weren't. There were 4 board members present at the meeting.
4?
Yeah, and
So
all the board members were, and most everyone else was.
Was appropriate?
Yeah, they were just looking out for the best interest of the museum, just really unsure about the one person, what her role was.
Okay. I'm going to ask the city manager to get an appraisal of the building because the property values down there are increased, I think, according to the people that are squalling about their taxes. We'd like to, David, when you talk to them again, we'd like to know how the board members get appointed. It's in their bylaws, I'm sure, but from what I can tell from dealing with this since 2018, that a lot of good people have left for one reason or another. And does the city or the does the city or county have an appointment on that board, city manager?
Not to my knowledge, Mayor, no.
Okay, thank you. Which I think needs to be changed if we're going to continue this. And when the schools utilize the building, do you know if the museum is financially compensated if the children on the buses come and enjoy the museum?
We're not sure. One school system was represented at the meeting. The other 2 local school systems were not. Here's the one thing I'll tell you. When we left them with the fact that we're willing to help them do whatever they can do to be a fantastic asset for downtown.
Bless you.
Probably the good and bad that we bring is that because we did their strategic plan 3 years ago, we know what all the warts are, we know all the issues, but the good side of that is we don't have to start from zero. We know some of the things that could help them, and we could help them move forward. And I think, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think they're amenable to sitting down and beginning to work on a plan and maybe a partnership with the city on how that building could possibly be utilized for maybe more than a museum. So don't know what those options are, but we want to continue talking to them and working with them on some of the things that I know are concerns of yours and the city staff.
Well, do you know if they've done any fundraisers to speak of, or if they've done like a big event to try and raise money for themselves?
From 3 years ago, we don't know. We have not gotten into it. 3 years ago, that was a significant need that we thought they needed to implement as they move forward, because for all nonprofits, fundraising is difficult, and they didn't have the big events that some of the other institutions have right now.
Well, just for the record, I will tell you what we tried to do in 2018. The city would release the museum from its current lease obligations, including HVAC repair costs provided the museum vacates the building in 2019. The city is willing to lease the museum for the current bluegrass system. Everybody knows we tried to get them to move over there, and their complaints were it wasn't big enough and all the things. And we were going to lease that to them for $1 for a period of 20 years. If the museum moved to the old bluegrass space, the city would ensure the building is mechanically sound prior to them taking possession. We'd fund the move, build out of the bluegrass museum space not to exceed $500,000. So if we sold the building, we were going to provide $500,000 for the move and the upgrades. And we'd sponsor a kickoff grand opening for the event for the new space to to not to exceed $25,000. The museum decides to move into a space other than the Bluegrass Museum. We will fund the move, build out the space, not to exceed $200,000, and sponsor another grand opening. So this letter was given to their board members on June the 8th, 2018. We received a response from them and basically given us a synopsis of what they were actually doing at the museum. In 2017, they said that 76,973 people visited the museum. It's broken down by visits by individuals, families, and non-school groups for 36,474 people. Attendees of the museum events were 23,210, and school groups 17,289. So if you, Angela probably can, so if you do the math, you take out Saturdays and Sundays and the days they're there, and you divide that by 76,000, you would actually have to have 196 people a day visit the museum to make these numbers work out. So we didn't get started off on a very good response to the museum. So I'm concerned about it. I don't want to lose it. I think it's an asset, but in its current state, it doesn't fulfill what I feel like needs to be. We offered to help them with a children's interactive museum on the first floor of the old Bluegrass Museum. And they didn't think that fit. We felt like it fit because, you know, you're right there by the Smothers Park. You have a little place, that the old Woodard's restaurant. You could cook hot dogs and whatever you wanted to. An easy pathway into the River Park Center for events for children. And that was not even acceptable. So from 2018 until this point, there's not been any, I say, reciprocating views on how we can help them, mainly because they're not helping themselves, in my view. So that was one of my biggest criteria when we asked you all to look at this thing. So I can give you copies of these issues, and I'm not speaking for the entire commission, obviously, but I feel like, you know, this has been going on for a long, long time. Having a science museum in our community is definitely an asset, but we need to be able to have a working agreement with them to make them as good as they can be, because it's gone the other way, and it's not for anybody's fault in per se, but if you can't keep board members and you can't have board meetings and you don't do fundraisers, you know, they're not any different than any other nonprofit in this community, and we need them to be successful. So I'm hoping through this monologue, I guess, that this will open a few doors for you all to go back and see. City manager has agreed to do an updated appraisal of the property, and we can get some movement on this as soon as possible.
Sounds good. Give us a month or so, and we'll see if we can re-engage with them. Of course, we met with them this morning, so.
Commissioner Sanford, do you have something?
Yes, just to piggyback on what the mayor said. David, you said something about a strategic plan. Is there any evidence at all that they moved forward on any of it whatsoever?
We were going to talk about that in the meeting, but we didn't get there. So we really couldn't tell you. I don't know. I couldn't give you an accurate assessment on that. But we were going to, the second meeting we had, we were going to get into progress that had been made, but it kind of went in a different direction.
It sounds to me like there's been no progress.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. So, you know, and pretty much what the mayor said is true. If you're not willing to help yourself, it's hard for us to help you. So I would like to see something done, some sort of business plan or something in the next, you know, how you're going to survive the next 3 months immediately with us giving them this type of money. You know, we just can't keep doing it, and the boat's sinking. That's just my opinion. I'm not speaking for anybody else up here, but that's just my opinion. But, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Yes, Mayor. Can we ask for their membership, board members' names, and then maybe meet with their board and find out what direction they want to go in, or what?
Yeah, I'll be glad to let you do that on behalf of the commission. That'd be great.
Well, I mean, I do.
Yeah.
I want to do that because I think that we need to hear from their entire board what their plans are, what their vision is. And if, you know, I'll do it.
We will be glad to include.
You can
Commissioner.
facilitate that meeting, can't you?
Absolutely. No, I mean, because we think we're going to have future meetings with them. We hope the dialogue continues because we see some opportunities and we'd love to have a representative from the commission. Be very helpful.
I agree with
Commissioner Maglinger.
Yes, I agree with what's been said with the Commissioner Mayor. And I hope that the next meeting can be a better meeting to where we can come up with some ideas, and you can come up with ideas, and we can work together. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Fred. Okay. Item 3 on the agenda, we go from something not so pleasant to something very pleasant with Ms. Hamrick. Or Ms. Tesla, which one?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to direct everyone to their screens, please. We are pleased to present to you and our viewing audience the city's second popular annual financial report, which we also call the PAFR, which is designed to provide a summary view of the city's financial position and activities that is more easily understood. The financial information is based on the city's fiscal year 2019 comprehensive annual financial report. That report includes the city's annual audit. The report is not just financial information, the PAFR, that is. It contains many other facts about our city. Things that you can find in the PAFR include the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance over the past 3 years for the general fund. That's the general operating fund of the city. You'll also find things like a graph. This graph depicts the types of general fund expenditures, broken down by items such as salaries, maintenance, and so forth. We also include a brief of notable projects that continue to make us a great city. Throughout this document, you will find information on who your elected officials and administrative staff are, contact information, as well as highlights of the city profile and facts. In August of 2019, the city received the nationally recognized award for outstanding achievement in the popular annual financial report on our first report last year from the Government Finance Officers Association. This award represents a significant achievement by the city. It also gives us guidelines on what to put in this report and gives us feedback and comments on how to improve it for the next time. You may find this report on the city's website at owensboro.org, or you may pick up a copy here at City Hall. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Commissioner Maglinger.
Angela, this report is great. It's simple. Not only does it give a snapshot of the finances, but there's a lot of information in here, from the city profile to our agency funding to our employers, and all of the city staff. So I got to commend you and the staff that this is a great report, and I hope our citizens out there get on the website and take a look at this, because this is really, really done nice.
Thank you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say it was a group effort of all of us here at the table, and City Clerk Beth Cecil.
So when you have a intellectual limitation as a mayor, you ask them to put this, it's called Budget for Dummies. So I think it's just fabulous. It's very helpful to me, for sure. So thank you all very much as a group. Okay. We have an entertainment destination center. Mr. Tim Ross, please.
Good afternoon, Commission. Tim Ross, Director of Public Events. Just wanted to provide a real brief update on the district and the EDC that was launched this past year in 2019. The City Commission desired to allow open containers, as you remember, for guests and patrons downtown for certain events, and so we've gotten that license from the state, like I said, and that launched in 2019, and it went really, really well. There were no incidents of concerns that some of the folks in the community had about unruly behavior or larger groups acting up and things like that, and We met with the traffic enforcement folks that oversee special events with the police department numerous times throughout the season. And when an incident would occur, like, hey, what's this about? And we really had no incidents specifically that were related back to allowing the open containers around downtown. So overall, it was a good event, a good kind of launch for the year. And again, the restrictions that we've got with it from the state level are great because they require that those drinks are purchased from businesses within the downtown core and within the boundaries of that space. And so we met with those folks and talked with them regularly throughout the season to see how it was going. And then, we had some wrap-up conversations once the kind of festival season ended in September and October. And across the board, they were all excited about the fact that we are now allowing open containers, for those special events like Friday After 5 or the air show or block parties, and those that had wanted to have the open containers as part of their events. But across the board, they all requested, hey, we would love to be able to expand that more and not do it just on a case-by-case basis. Talked with city manager and with Leland about it. We've discussed it internally and obviously want to seek input from the commission to whether or not you are open to expanding that based on the request of those downtown businesses. We had 10 or 11, I think, businesses that hold licenses downtown to sell alcoholic drinks that all participated in it this past year. And across the board, all of them we talked to were wanting to be able to expand that. So again, looking for feedback from the commission over the next weeks, months, before the festival season kind of gets going and we've got those events taking place. If your direction would be to expand that to every Friday and Saturday night, just with certain hours that those drinks would be allowed, or if it's all weekend, or if it's anytime, 24/7, that folks can have them like a few other places have got. I would recommend that we still allow, if you wanted to expand it just with certain hours on the weekend, for instance, that we do allow it as well on a case-by-case basis for events. I can think of two off the top of my head that don't take place during the normal Friday kind of weekend hours that would like to have an opportunity for drinks along the riverfront because of what their footprint is. But again, just wanted to give positive feedback for the launch. Like I said, we started last year and we didn't know how it was going to work with those downtown businesses, but it seemed to work pretty smooth and seamlessly. And so now we're looking for some feedback about potentially expanding that.
Commissioner Sanford.
Just a couple of quick questions. So we didn't have any problems with underage drinking or adults or anything like that, or people taking drinks into retail businesses that you're...
No, sir. I mean, regularly, throughout the season, over the course of 4 months and the size crowds that we get, sure, there's instances that pop up, but it was nothing out of the ordinary from a normal July 4th or an air show or Friday After 5. So nothing specifically with those cups and that new policy.
All right, thank you.
Tim, when you're having these discussions with staff, can you update us on the meetings that you're having so we won't all of a sudden get a recommendation that we don't even know what's been talked about in the past? If there may be something there we might like that we won't want to add. If you're having these discussions, I personally would like to have, information on the direction that you're going so we can not be just all of a sudden, okay, here's the new plan, and we have to make a decision, more, and give me some time to think about it. Is that unreasonable request?
No, not unreasonable at all, sir. Like I said, they were just some discussions in, I think it was October and November timeframe with those different groups. And so in meeting with city manager, we said, well, let's kind of throw out the idea there at a work session, but we can certainly have those conversations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just share that information so we can kind
Sure.
of follow you along on your journey there.
Sure.
My question is, what kind of complaints have been registered other than the normal, don't let anybody drink and that stuff? Is there anything we have to look at as we move forward and in possibility of increasing this footprint?
Sure. No, honestly, I haven't had any complaints about it. Like I said, I can think of 2 instances that involved alcohol, but it wasn't specifically for this. For the open container, it was just folks that were acting a bit unruly at a restaurant and that happens, I don't want to say regularly, but it happens, right, at restaurants and different festivals and things. So, underage, several years ago, the police department did a great job helping step up with River Park and Convention Center and some of those for Friday After 5. So those normal issues that society has, a handful of times over the course of a season. But I honestly have not had any complaints through our office or through any of the participating businesses about the implementation, except for wanting to allow it more. That's the only concern that they've had.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Item 5 on the agenda is Police Department crime statistics. The Chief Art Elam, President of the Kentucky Association of Chiefs, I think, right?
Yes, sir.
Had a baby.
Art
bow.
Elam,
Take a
Chief
bow.
of Police, 222 East 9th Street. So what I'm going to talk about briefly, I've been told to be brief, so that's what I'm going to do. Our crime stats for 2019. There's a caveat to that because we report through Kentucky Ops, which it shows everything that we send through. And so it's not going to match up with the FBI UCR data. And I'll explain.
I really don't understand that, so.
Well, what happens is if we report, let's say, 15 robberies, well, 2 of them may not be robberies. It could have been a false complaint or whatever. So KY Ops takes that data as a robbery or 15 robberies, but when the FBI scrubs it down, they say, oh, you only had 13.
So,
and that happens all across the state. And be mindful that agencies don't have to utilize KY Ops. It's optional, and so is reporting to the FBI. So,
really?
yes. Interesting. First up, you'll see our OPD is Part 1, violent crimes. Violent crimes consist of murder, rape, robbery, and assault. We did see an increase in homicides this year, and this past year we went from 3 to 6. And if you all recall, that was due to a situation that occurred at the very beginning of 2019 on Audubon Avenue when 3 individuals were murdered. Arnett Baines and Kyler Shinwell are in custody. They were indicted for murder in those situations. But the previous year in 2018, we had 3 homicides as well. The robberies, we were down to 26. I'm sorry, we were down to 40 compared to 65 in the previous year. 26 rapes as opposed to 30 the previous year, and 99 assaults, which was a decrease from 115 in 2018. If you look, pretty much you can see violent crime is decreasing, and this next slide will demonstrate that to you.
Chief, could I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So these are the 4 categories that you would categorize as violent crime?
Yes.
Okay, so when we read the newspaper and we see stuff, we need to keep that in mind, correct? That the violent crimes are classified as in those 4 classifications.
Yes. And typically the way to look at that is crimes against person. So assaults, you can't assault a car, but you can't rob an empty building, so to speak. So.
Sorry to get you off. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Next up is the Part 1. I can't. Property crimes, yeah. Burglaries went down from 480 to 374. Larceny, which is a fancy word for theft, went down to 1847 from the previous year, which is 2107. If you notice, I have the decreases, the net change, the percent decreases to your far right there. So burglaries went down 22% in 2019. Your thefts, larcenies went down 12.34%. Vehicle thefts decreased by 18.18%, and arsons were down by 30%.
Is that because of the Knox box?
No. I can say with 100% certainty it was not because of Knox boxes. But so, I mean, it's been a good year. I mean, you've seen reports, whether it be on social media, media reports or whatever. And what happened is just what I described to you. because I think it's important. The FBI on their website, when it comes to UCR crime data, it says the warning is not to take that data and compare it to other cities. And I've done that with KY Ops, but again, I'll give you that caveat as well, is that it's not true. It could not be absolutely 100% positive what you see and accurate. So, but the FBI warns against it. But what happens is you get these commercial companies that look at reports and see data, and like, for instance, there was a city that's half of our size I didn't use in this report when you see the comparison. But they only had in KY Ops 1 homicide, and I'm like, there's no way. So we started digging, and we found out that they no longer report through KY Ops, and they actually had 4 homicides in 2019. So that's the trouble with using data that you get from UCR reports and KY Ops.
So is there something legislatively that can be done in Frankfurt to, you know, to make everybody report the same way? I mean, you're choosing whether or not you want to report to make your city look better, or is that what's happening?
Well, you know, crime is kind of a social thing anyway, so it's going to be unique to each individual community. Like Owensboro, the problems we have here with drugs, for instance, we have a methamphetamine problem, but the opioid crisis that's going on in eastern Kentucky is far different. So naturally, the crimes are going to be different as well. So you can try, I mean, with Frankfurt, but there's so many different components involved that it'd be difficult to come up with one shop, stop, whatever.
One shoe doesn't fit everybody,
that
does
would
it?
cover everybody, so.
Okay.
Okay. And there's some violent crimes. Okay, that's the property crime chart, sorry. I went back and looked at 2018 as well, just to show and compare it to other cities. And this is reported again through KY Ops. Covington had 10 homicides. Bowling Green had 6. Owensboro had 3. Paducah 6. I mean, you can see, and the list goes on, up to Lexington and Louisville, 25 and 80 respectively. The total number of violent crimes when you consider murder, rapes, robberies, assaults, Covington had 183 reported, Bowling Green 258, Owensboro 213, Paducah 114, Frankfurt 92, 1,040 reported by Lexington, and 4,380 reported by Louisville.
So is this a caveat because of KOPS?
KY Ops, yes.
And so there's a caveat in there they made?
Again, some of them could have been attempted murder, and so, but KY Ops will capture that until there's a supplemental report done at some point saying that this person actually survived, even though somebody shot him and attempted to kill him.
Okay.
So those are called inchoate offenses, like a complicity, an attempt, facilitation. So, and I won't get into the weeds and explain that, but. Violent crime stats, just another chart. 2019, I think this is where I'm missing that from my
I'm asking too much question, I'm sorry.
oh, you're fine. I'm gonna have to look off of this. But 2019, Covington went up slightly to 188. Bowling Green went down to 219 violent crimes. We saw a decrease. We went down to 172. I think Louisville went up a little bit, 4,928 above the previous year. But you know, crime fluctuates, and I think nationally overall, violent crime has decreased. So be mindful of what you read, what you look at, and certainly what you believe, because the information is not always 100% crystal clear and certainly not accurate at times. Now, before you ask, this last slide, I'll get to, just shows you our clearance rate, and basically we clear things by exceptional means, which means they were cleared by arrest or prosecution declined. So we just can't say we got a case, we don't want to look into it, we throw into a drawer and get rid of it. A prosecutor has to say, they look at our evidence, our facts, our probable cause, and they say, hey, there's not enough elements here that meet the criteria for a crime. I refuse to prosecute that or whatever. And that happens from time to time. But our average is 64%. The national average and the clearance rate for violent crimes is 46%. So property crimes, we clear at 32%. The national average is 18%. And those are legitimate numbers from the UCR report from the FBI website. Now, what factors contribute to that? We got people out there working, doing a job, doing a fantastic work, whether from patrolmen that take the initial report to the detectives that investigate and follow up. We've partnered with the FBI on a number of occasions. We've got a member on the DEA task force, which you all, or you read or saw that back in November, we had several people indicted on federal charges for gun violence. That was Project Safe Neighborhoods through the U.S. Attorney's Office. So those things help. There's theorists out there that say deterrence theory, how you prevent crime or deter crime, and that is, the swiftness of punishment or certainty of punishment and the seriousness of punishment. And when you have federal prosecutors involved,
You stamp that federal thing on them, that's serious.
it gets pretty serious.
Yeah.
We had 3 individuals just recently indicted with the Grim Reapers. 3 of those individuals from Owensboro were indicted, Central Holman, the 4th, Prince Moss, and DeMauro Killebrew. And what that means for them is they could be facing anywhere from 10 to life imprisonment based on the crimes that they've committed and been federally indicted for. So that certainly slows people down. We've taken a number of guns off the street. We've implemented a flex unit that has been instrumental in addressing those crimes. Their mission is, simple: get guns, people with warrants, and drugs off of our street. And they've been going out doing just that. And the patrolmen that are out there, the patrol officers last night arrested 4 individuals, but 2 of them were armed with handguns and charged with trafficking while armed. So, and it's everywhere. And it's not unique to Owensboro, and unfortunately, we can't escape it. So, any questions?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
right.
It's not so much a question. My son lives in Richmond, Virginia, and every time something happens in Owensboro, he knows it before I know it.
Yes.
And he'll call, Mom, what is going on in Owensboro? Because to him, it seems like this is where he grew up and all this stuff is happening. But I just want to tell you that I appreciate the work that you and the officers do, that, your job cannot be easy, and to wrap your head around or your mind around all of the stuff that's going on and you being on top of it, I appreciate that. So you can thank the officers for me, and I think you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you, but they do a fantastic job, and having people that are willing to go out there and make the sacrifices that are needed in order to facilitate this institution we call law enforcement. It's a tremendous honor to serve, them in that capacity. So
So when are we going to get assault on a police officer a federal crime?
I thought about that too. And here's the trouble in that. That could be an assault on a police officer.
I see.
And we don't want to, demonize people, for pushing and shoving police officers, because that's the nature of our business. We want to take someone's freedom away, so they might resist in that capacity. But the people that shoot at officers or stab them or commit seriously violent offenses against officers, then they should go to prison for life, if you ask me. But simple assaults.
Just
and things
throwing
like-
water on you doesn't count.
Right. Well, in some places it does. And we struggle with that here because in our assaults, I'm sure assault third is listed, which is a Class C felony. But if you assault a teacher, a police officer, a nurse or doctor at a hospital, you could get a charge for assault third. Now, what's the definition of assault? A simple assault? If somebody slaps a police officer, that's assault third. And so, you have to be careful when you start talking like that, because then we'll get back into somebody going to prison for 1 rock of crack cocaine versus somebody that has 5 kilos sitting in the same cell serving the same amount of time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
but we can talk about it afterwards.
It's blowing up now as it is.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank
We
you.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, city manager project list.
Thank you, Mayor. The list has been in your packet for your review. I'd like to emphasize just two projects quickly that are some of our more high-profile here recently. As you know, the proposals for Gabe's Tower recently opened. We got 23 proposals. They seem very competitive, and so we were happy with that return. The committee will meet tomorrow morning to review those, so hopefully we'll have some movement soon on Gabe's. And then on the bridge lighting, the contractor has mobilized and is on scene, so expect to see work commence very soon on that project as well. Other than that, we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, city manager, if you select a contractor on the 12th, in that proposal, does it have a time listed of when the completion of the job is?
I believe some of them did have timelines involved. Of course, there are a lot of factors involved regarding what their other projects may be, their workload, how far they have to travel. Some of them were from as close as Evansville, as far away as Chicago and Wisconsin and other states. So there are a lot of factors involved, but certainly I think we would expect it to definitely come down this year.
So can you make an average of the ones of the 23 as to the average time that might take Bigfoot? You got that in your head?
Yes, sir, Mayor.
Excuse me,
Anywhere from
Leland
about
Hancock, Assistant City Manager.
anywhere from about 3.5 months until about the end of September.
Okay, good. That
Why-
helps
why-
us as elected officials when we get. I won't hold you directly to that, but that gives us a time frame to tell them about. Thank you.
Those were their estimated.
They're estimated.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Point of clarification. So, and then the same thing on you're saying that completion is 6 to 7 months on the bridge lighting, depending on the weather and winter weather conditions. So we're looking at maybe Christmas or something in that neighborhood.
Looking at July.
Oh, July. Well, 6 and 4 is 10, 7 and 4 is 11. So you're gonna do.
Well, you've got to consider in that timeline that the light package is already on order. And that was in that time frame, so they've had that light package on order for probably 3 weeks now. But that timeline started back in December, so yeah, January.
Okay, so we're looking at Julie, right? Okay. Do we have a report on, other than what's in our packet on Jack C. Fisher Park renovation? I just kind of like to know if it's, I know they've been kind of screwed up with the weather as well. And I believe Amanda was probably ready for me to blindside her, so she won't be blindsided today. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for asking. The renovation project at Jack C. Fisher Park is going really well. We've been on schedule up until this week. Obviously, with the weather and the wet conditions, we're not getting much work done this week, nor do I anticipate much done next week. Right now, what we're seeing occur and what has occurred leading up to this week was the capstone on all the fields, which will be the layer that goes down before you start to see the turf installed. In addition, we're in the process of doing the irrigation work. We've gotten a significant amount done on the red field. It's laid out on all the other fields, waiting for it to get dry enough that we won't do more harm than good installing that new irrigation in the outfield and there with the capstone. Also, other pieces that aren't just the fields, the bid for the back parking lot and the entrance work, it went out this weekend, and it's due back the 27th, so we anticipate seeing work beginning on that portion of the project at the end of May. And we're also in the process as staff internally, getting prepared through state contract many items like the shade structures, the site amenities that we need to dress up those entrance areas. We're working with OMU on the back parking lot lighting that'll be a part of this bid packet as well. There's some coinciding work that OMU do for us as they own those poles and those light poles in that parking lot there. In addition to that, we're pricing equipment. Obviously, there's a couple of pieces of equipment and several hand tools that we'll need for turf that we don't currently own. So we're in the process of pricing those and working with purchasing, hoping to start getting those purchase orders out in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Magdalene?
I noticed that the estimated completion is Memorial Day weekend. Do we have some big events already booked?
We have a large Memorial Day weekend baseball tournament that is currently planned. Typically, we see about 50 to 60 teams that weekend. That's in Owensboro, Davis County. Certain age groups play at Jackson Fisher. Certain age groups also play at Panther Creek. That system will be the same this upcoming season. We're anticipating more teams this weekend as we're getting a lot of phone calls to our office and to the CVB and to tournament directors. Now that we've kind of got a little bit of marketing out there about what we're doing, we're starting to see people that haven't regularly played here show interest in wanting to come to Owensboro and play on that synthetic field. So we're very excited about seeing new faces and new teams over the next several years.
Thank you.
Progress, I like it.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay, that's all I have. Anybody else have anything on these projects?
Just a quick question.
Sure, Commissioner Sanford.
Abby, people have been asking me about Gabe Shopping Center, and I know that you've got part of it done.
Yes, sir. Abby Shelton, Community Development Director for the City of Owensboro. We have run into several structural issues that we've had to go back and re-engineer. The first time was issues due to columns, lack of columns, just the actual support that we needed to put the canopies on. So now we had to come back and do a second change order for the second phase of that facade, but we should be mobilized here in the next 2 weeks, so you'll see some construction. Yeah, we had the same issues on the south end that we do on the north end, but thankfully it's a shorter issue.
Thank you. People have been asking me. I just wanted to make sure.
And funding's already been taken, is going to take care of those change orders and everything.
Correct. Federal funding will take care of those
Awesome.
change orders.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Thank you, staff, for being here and all your hard work. We appreciate you. We hope that if you have any questions, you newspaper folks, we got documentation, so we can make sure what we tell you is what you need to print, right? All right. The motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.